Hello and welcome back. In the previous video, we completed the configuration and setup of the Checkpoint Gateway. We are now going to access the web UI of the management server and do the same completion, update the hotfixes, any interfaces, any users that we need to change, then we need to do those changes from the web UI. So if I run a browser and then access the IP we provided, if you can't remember, sometimes you might forget, so you can log into the console. We know the user we created, the user that we set up. You can check the interface. So show interfaces. So interfaces, if you want to check all of them, there's just one, which is Ethernet 0, but there's an IP here, 10.1.1.100. That's the IP we're after. So if you say Control C and exit the web UI, the command line, then go back to the browser and use the IP that was given from the interface. It is 100. So we provided the IP address of the web UI. It's Ethernet 0 of the management server, and now you can see it's taken us to the login page, but there's a certificate issue because this is a self-signed certificate. So we accept, we know this is something we are building. So we continue, then it takes us to the login page. Then we are at the initial configuration wizard or the first time configuration wizard, and to complete that we will take the steps we have done with the gateway, but for this case we are going to choose the management server instead of gateway. So we continue with R81.10, and this is the interface we were using, and our default gateway is here. Then we name as we had in the VMware workstation. So if you remember, we have CP-SMS01, CP-SMS01. SMS is Security Management Server, and we call this one mylab.local. The DNS server is the internet, the broadband router I have here, but I can also use the Google DNS. So if we say next, I'm using the current time here. Then if I say next, it's not a multi-domain server, it's just security management server. And we need to unselect that because it's a distributed environment. It's just one management server at the time, and it's the primary security management server. If you want to create a secondary one, then when you're installing, you have to select from here and choose secondary. And if you want to install log server, you also do it from here, event manager or smart event or log manager. If you want to do it, then you have the option from here. So it's the same operating system, same process, but you need to change from here, and we keep that one selected. There is admin, the Gaia portal, the web UI, as well as the CLI. They're using admin user. We need to change that, and let's call it SOC admin. This is the user we will use when we are going to do the Smart Console installations. And here at the moment we are accessing from any IP in my network, or any IP actually. If you want to restrict to this IP from this machine, then you select here. If you have a network that's dedicated to the firewall access and you have a team working from that network, then you can select there, or a range. But this one you can do it from the web UI later on. And in security, as a best practice, you don't have to allow every IP. You need to know what subnets the access is coming from. So for now, as a lab, we continue, and then the machine starts the configurations, and then it reboots. So I will pause the recording and restart when this completes. Okay, so the configuration completed after about 10 minutes, and we will say okay, and the machine will start to reboot. You have to wait for some time, especially if you're trying to log in using the Smart Console. Most of the services take time to actually establish and run, so you have to give it time. You can run commands to check if the services are up from the command line, and when you feel these things are all good, or like the CPU is not shooting up high 100%, then you can log in. So now the management server is right here. It's a bit different from the gateway. So if you can see the dashboard, you can customize as you want, but the things you can do from the security gateway, they're all here, but some features won't be supported because we're using a security management server. Some things are specific to the management server and different from the gateway. So what we have to do now is to check our connectivity to the internet so we can download the software or the hotfixes. If you remember, our management server sits behind the firewall. The default gateway is the firewall. When you install the firewall, it will have the initial policy, and it's blocking traffic that's coming from outside to your internal network. And then you have to create a policy that allows this internal network to access the internet. The IP is right here, and we have no IP version 6 configuration, so we can disable that. The IP4 is here. The default gateway is right here, so we can try to access any services on the internet. So if you say Bing google.com, can we reach that service? This is a private IP address. It is 10.1.1, if you can see here. And when it goes to the firewall, it's accessing the firewall from this network. But the firewall then will try to forward this traffic to the internet interface, which is 192.168. And that interface is connected to my local broadband. The local broadband will receive this subnet. My broadband is only configured to NAT the things that are coming from 192. It doesn't understand this subnet, so it won't allow that communication to continue. So what we're going to do, let's log in again. What we're going to do is create a policy on the gateway that nets this traffic coming from 10 subnet going to the internet. It has to be netted first as 192.168, which will be known to my broadband router, and the broadband router will see it coming from 192 even though it came from 10. Then it will double NAT and then forward it to the internet. That's how I can access the internet. Before that, I cannot. You could remember when we were doing the firewall or the gateway, it was accessing the internet normally, because its external interface was 192, and when it hits my broadband router, the broadband router sees it, the subnet coming from 192, which it will NAT. That's how it's configured. So if you have a home lab, please make sure this NATing is configured correctly. So I will stop here for this video. The management server is complete. We will go through the other configurations in another video, but for the coming videos, we will start pushing policies, installing the smart console, and then establishing our NATing policy, security policy, and accessing the internet using firewall rules. So thank you again for your time, and see you in the next video.